that we have, guys, is about 1 to 10. So we've been discussing 0 to 1 mostly, but there are a lot of people that fall under that particular umbrella of taking a company from $1 million to $10 million in sales and onwards. So we have Abhijeet, who has been there, done that. I would love him. I would like him to introduce himself, because uh, uh, I'll probably take 15 minutes to introduce him. He's accomplished so much in his life, and I've been a great fan of the way he has scaled up, capillary in the past, and now he's coming up with his own product, which is also around sales. So the session is all about 1 to 10, and I'll let Abhijeet take it from here. Hey, Abhijeet, how are you?
Hey Anupreet, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing good. It's been 3 hours straight in this session, just running out of water, and that's about it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think
that's like one inning of a cricket match, right? A 50 cricket match. You've
it
been like
is.
for commentary.
Yeah, it is absolutely. But honestly, it's been a great learning session. I think it is. Learnings are, worth a lifetime within these 3 or 4 hours that we're spending right now. So I think, I have, I'm thrilled to see that we have so many attendees that are sticking around with us from the beginning. So it's great that so far everyone is finding it very, very meaningful.
No, no, great to know that, and great to be part of this very innovative session, I must say. I think this is the first of its kind, a concept like this, where, and you're terming it as a rambling session. It's very light-hearted, informative at the same time. Everybody can learn from each other. So quite excited. I was looking forward to be part of it, and happy to share my journey around 1 to 10 million. And just to um share a little bit about myself. I think you did mention about my background, my previous company, what I've done, and I've made a lot of mistakes in life and in sales in general. My whole objective has been to help other people, not to make the same mistakes, and make sure that if as people, as individuals, we can help each other, whether it's sales, whether it's productivity, whether it's in general being part of the SaaS community that we are, and how we can add value in the whole ecosystem. Because back then when I was at Capillary, I think we were the first batch of SaaS companies out of India. I think batch of 2009, as I call it, and it's been like more than a decade now. We've got a lot of experience in the ecosystem, a lot of companies which have come forward, done well, scaled both in India and outside of it. And there's a lot of learning which is available, which we can share. So it's about time that that a session like this got initiated.
Yeah,
Because when I remember my early days in 2011, 2012, there's nobody to talk to.
yeah,
If I had to
yeah,
just understand how do I go about even prospecting, or how do I go about putting a sales playbook or a process around it, how to sell in the US, how to sell in Southeast Asia, how to hire a VP of sales for SaaS who understands SaaS. And there's nobody there to talk to in India, or even like Asia for that matter. So I think this is now a great opportunity, which will definitely help the new generation of SaaS entrepreneurs. And I think India is the hotbed of SaaS, and I think we have a lot of potential as an economy and as a geography to build great SaaS products. And we've got a lot of talent available, which basically can help everybody scale. So yeah, looking forward to the chat session today, and I think this topic is very close to my heart. The 1 to 10 journey is one of the most exciting ones, where there's a lot of failure points that can occur. I mean, a lot can go wrong, and there's a lot of advice which is available on sales. I think if you look at sales as a topic in general, and you start reading a blog every day, your whole life won't be sufficient to cover all the blogs that exist. Or if you
yeah,
put down all the logos that are there in the sales tools that are available globally, and you put them on a wall, I think the wall won't be enough, right? So there's a lot out there, but the point that I was trying to make is there's not much of relevant advice which is there. So I think it's very
yeah,
important for anybody who's on the call to take it with a pinch of salt, whatever you heard today, or you're hearing from me, or you'll be hearing after me.
yeah,
I mean, it's very, very stage relevant. I think advice is one of the I mean, it's a double-edged sword. It can go either way if it's not relevant to you. So you need to be like the right bucket for the advice to be relevant to you. So if you are a startup who basically has hit the product market fit and who's looking to grow 10x from here, So I think my session should help, and the points and the experience that I'm going to share. Yeah.
Absolutely, and thank you for agreeing to do that, Abhijit, because most of the other panelists that we had, we've been discussing 0 to 1, and then I wanted 1 to 10 to be discussed as well, because uh, all of us are either on our journey to 0 to 1, or so for example, Prakhar has already done 0 to 1, 1 to 10, and now he's going onwards from 10. But Prakhar, I wanted Prakhar to talk about 0 to 1 more, and because I've been a great fan of him, scaling a startup from India to making it a household name in US. Similarly for you, right? I have a lot of respect around how you scaled up capillary in times wherein there was no playbook, as you said. So you were defining playbooks, and one of the challenges that, or one of the challenges that I've given to myself is to build a playbook for Stintle in the coming couple of months, because I think now we are on that journey of moving from 0 to 1 to now 1 to 10. So we have to absolutely start planning for that. And I did a quick poll on our participants to check if they are planning to build a sales playbook, and 86% of them, and the results are right now on the screen. 86% of them, yes, absolutely, they want to build a sales playbook as well, because I think all of them are now thinking about moving in that direction, and they might not be having as many processes as of now. And we have a couple of them who said we already have one, but I think no one said that we don't need one. So I think the importance of playbook is super important, and I don't think I know a better person to talk about it than you. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the first thing I would advise anybody to do. I think when you're looking to scale from a product market fit scenario, and that's typically the 1 million mark when a SaaS company hits. That's when I think the founder-led sales motion gets challenged. That how you replicate that sales through the next set of people you would be hiring, or they could be like some initial team members who can get into the sales roles, and how they can replicate what you've been doing, right? I mean, founders are great at selling. I mean, once they go about executing their idea and they go about initially pitching it to their close network or their investor network, and a lot of initial clients that get signed up, and I would say the success rates would be probably, I think, 2 in 3 deals that you'll end up winning. But that yield comes drastically down as you get your, say, once your early employees move into sales, you'll probably do 1 in 3 deals, and that gets substantially lower to probably 1 in 5 deals when you start hiring external talent. And I've seen worse numbers as well across the ecosystem. And the reason behind the varied success is all about this whole success mantra of the organization, that whole secret sauce on what you stand for as an organization, what defines you, or what problem that you're trying to solve for your client. And it's very important for that to be articulated really well. And you need to really get into the shoes of the buyer. You need to really get into the shoes of the salesperson in your organization to think through this whole playbook, how it works for your sellers and how would it work for your buyers. You need to be understanding the pain your company or your product is solving. You need to be really looking at why you as a company or product exist in the first place. It's very important to get answers to some of these questions. And I think there's a lot of tribal knowledge that sits in the founders' heads or the initial sales team, but that never gets translated into like a working playbook which can be executed. So I think the first and foremost any organization should do once you hit a product market fit and you're looking to scale and ramp up is articulate that knowledge that is there in your head into like a playbook, uh, and templatize it. I think that's really, really important. And that gives you a solid foundation and a scalable model to go after executing it.
Absolutely. So, Vijit, I have a few questions for you that I'll start asking now. And in the meantime, if anyone else has any questions, you can just put them in the Q&A box, and I'll try to cover most of them. Rahul, we can move to the next slide. Thank you. So I think Vijit, you started answering that, but I would love to get a picture on the overall skeleton of a playbook. So what goes into it? What are the basics that should definitely be a part of that playbook? Because for people like me who are writing it for the first time, uh, we don't know where to start, and what is the skeleton that we should follow.
Yeah, I think it's an end-to-end of the organization's sales process, I would say, from hiring to onboarding or ramping your sales team to executing the whole sales motion to scaling that. Right. So there are different aspects of the sales process where the playbook will come handy, and you have to continuously evolve it. you need to get started, right? I mean, it's not something that you'll create overnight, but you need to start articulating it as and when you start seeing success, you start seeing results, that you have a product that is solving a particular pain point for a particular type of buyer persona. It delights a particular user persona in a particular manner, and how you can go about doing a solution discussion with that prospect of yours, how you end up selling that to the buyer, convincing them in the process on how this is going to make things a few times better if they go ahead with you, and then how that can be replicated uh, across the organization, across their user base that they try, and how the impact typically gets delivered. And typically in SaaS, I would say, I mean, people talk about sales funnel all the time. I would tend to think about it a little bit differently. I mean, funnel is great for perpetual sales motions where you have top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, and mid of the funnel in between. But SaaS doesn't stop at bottom of the funnel once you close the customer, right? I mean, your real journey starts when you land the customer, and if you just tilt it horizontally, the whole funnel, and just do a mirror image there and join the two, you'll probably get like a bow tie or a drum. So you have on the right hand side, once you close the sales, you have this whole journey that gets started, where you would implement the customer, you will then grow into the existing customer, and you start farming that customer, right? So the hunting and farming both becomes very relevant to SaaS. So it's very important to bring that also into consideration. It's a lot more easy to do more with existing customers than getting new customers, and both are important. But I've
Yeah.
seen getting over-indexed on just hunting,
Yeah.
and they lose focus on farming, which
Yeah.
also leads to like retention issues and churn, and it also like it's money on the table. I mean, the opportunities that you would have closed with your existing clients. So having said that, I mean, if you have to start thinking through a playbook of sorts, I think very important for you to like put down this whole process map which I'm talking about, which starts from like a typical lead that falls into your top of the funnel of the hunting process,
Hmm.
whether it's a marketing qualified lead, or it's a sales accepted or a sales ready lead, to how it converts into an opportunity, from an opportunity to a discovery call, from a discovery to a solution discussion, solution validation, to like a demo, proposal presentation, to a negotiation, to documentation, to a closure, and from there how you implement, and then how you make your users adopt, and then how from an adoption you get users to be delighted, and then you get into the growth loop of farming, right? So I think you need to define this process map very clearly. I mean, that's very important when you start putting down your playbook. Second thing I would advise everybody to look at is your ACV, or ARR, in many ways that we talk in the SaaS ecosystem, the annual recurring revenue, or the average contract annual contract value. I think that defines your sales process, and it defines your organization, and it's super relevant to SaaS. An organization who is selling deals of 5K or 10K would have a very different sales motion and a sales process versus an organization who basically has a 30 to 50K ACV versus somebody who sells at 100K plus ACV. And you all of them have to adopt a different strategy. So it's very important that you know what's your ACV is like. I mean, by when you're hitting a product market fit, you hit $1 million ARR. I think you tend to know that what's that typical persona of your users, and the buyer profile that you can go after. And this is the typical ACV that you land, and you can probably make it better by 30 to 50% with your product evolution, as well as some of the features, etc., that you'll upgrade, and the value enhancement that you'll do, and the upscale in the pricing. But then your ACV largely get defined, and your process revolves around that. It's very important to also templatize by that time, where you know what's your ideal customer profile. So every organization should be able to put together in their playbook what's my ideal customer profile looking like, whether it's a banking and financial sector B2B sales team, or it is going to be a retail uh, company, or it's going to be an FMCG company, a particular business unit within that. It has to be very clearly defined that, okay, this is your ideal customer profile, where you can easily implement. Your deal cycles are lower, the buyer clearly understands the needs, and you're able to like show the delight and impact very quickly. And once you get to this ICP understanding, it's very important that you start doing more of these. I've seen a lot of organizations start spraying at this time, because from pressure of growing from a 1 million to 5 or a 1 to 10, you end up like doing more, where you'll expand internationally. At the same time, you'll do multiple industries, and that's where a lot of things can go wrong. It's very important that what's worked and what are those typical ideal customer profiles. You templatize those and you go after those segments, whether in the same country or even if you're going global, you can do that, but do more of that. So that whole ideal customer profiling and template selling is very important. It's also very important that you tend to come to like a business case that you prepare for your client, in terms of what's the ROI you deliver when your solution gets implemented. A lot of SaaS companies miss doing that, or even if they know that, they don't articulate or discuss it with their buyers and their customers that often. So it's very important that you do that in mind. It definitely creates a very significant impact. Whereas a founder, you'll probably be able to do that quite well, but it's not going to be very intuitive to your sales teams. So they need to be really aware about this, and it needs to be part of your playbook on what's the business impact you deliver to your potential buyers. And then there are things around like how do you go about dealing with your competitors, how do you handle those objections, to like
Yep.
what kind of sequences you follow in your sales process, right? I mean there are a lot of things that I can talk about, the sales matrix
Yep.
which we need to start tracking by now. I think it's very important beyond just the bookings. Yeah.
Awesome. Great insights there, Abhijeet. And again, I'm just learning that as a student. I'm just making my notes as you were speaking, and I'll make sure that I get back to you again, when I have the first draft ready there. And I think a lot of other people might also have questions around this. So if this goes well, we can actually plan another session just around playbooks, because it is, I think, a very, very long topic. We can move to the next question, Rahul. So. One thing that we wanted to ask you, and I asked the same question to Prakhar around 0 to 1 as well, that what kind of sales hire have performed well from 1 to 10? So, there would be some existing hires that did really well in the 0 to 1 journey. There might be a few that couldn't do as well in 1 to 10. And similarly, when you're hiring them, do you think there are some traits that matter more than before? Do you change your strategy of hiring when you're hiring in the next phase of your growth?
So 1 to 10 million journey, I think what's always worked for me, and I don't say that I had a great hit rate with respect to the rep success or on the hiring side. Probably I think 1 in 3 reps met like an expectation of overachievement whenever I've hired. I thought that would be poor, but I realized that the industry standard is around like 20-25% in terms of the rep success. So I think probably I can share a couple of viewpoints there on what I did that ended up delivering some of those results. So I always look for salespeople who would hustle. So I would look at a very strong trait around whether they can hustle, they can roll up their sleeves. I look for strong intent to learn. I think it's very important for the salespeople to have the learning ability. I mean, if they just become like a postman, or they just like communicating and scheduling meetings, and for everything that a customer or the buyer asks them, they say that I'll get back to you, or I'll get my expert on the call. I think that won't work, especially for consultative selling tech products, SaaS products. It's very important that there is this whole learning intent. Even if you don't know that product or domain or the solution, you can always pick it up. So you need to have that strong learning intent. Wherever I see that as a negative, I tend to not go for that candidate. I also look for a lot of passion, which had been demonstrated in the past experience. It could be doing like simpler, smaller things as well. But if there is a passion that shines out in the discussion, I definitely go for it. A background in consultative selling definitely helps, because SaaS selling, especially when I talk about like say 20-30K ARR and more, I think it's definitely, it gets into that whole consultative selling, and that experience helps. I think one should also look for reps who have sold similar offerings or same. And I think one thing which I'm a bit biased towards, and I have a very strong, you can say a preconceived notion there, which led from my experiences. I'm very anti-brand there. I generally don't go for bigger brands or companies who are at like say 100 million plus ARR, right? I mean, the salespeople there already are representing certain brands.
Right.
They go as favorites in any meeting, and they have probably a lot of brand pull when they go in conducting their sales meetings. So the real sales talent doesn't shine out there. I mean, it's not that like the great brands don't have great salespeople. I mean, there are amazing sales talent out there. It's just that I don't see that hunger, passion, and that whole what it means to be an underdog, and how you come back there. And so I definitely look for salespeople who have represented unknown brands or newer companies and have done really well there. So I definitely go for that, because it's a lot more difficult and harder to go in a meeting room where the buyer has already made up of mind to implement a Salesforce or an Oracle or an SAP for the similar solution that you're offering, and you go about and represent yourself and you're able to close the deal, right? So it takes a whole lot different great and expertise and motivation and passion to make that happen. So I generally look for some of these things when I hire between the 1 to 10 range.
And I totally agree there. Anyone who's listening to this, right? If you've been selling bigger brands throughout your career, and you think sales is becoming monotonous for you, I think it's time that you take a chance and try selling a newer product and challenge yourself there. And the overall process, the overall grit that is required is altogether different. So, being underdogs and still winning is something that comes with a different kick altogether. So anyone listening to this and has been, following, have been hopping from one brand to others, must definitely try out startups. And I can say that because I've been all about startups in my sales career. So great. So another question, Abhijeet, that I had for you was a process change that you think that really helped you as a sales leader sleep peacefully, right? Because in the 1 to 10 million, I'm sure you didn't really sleep peacefully most of the times, but one process change that you think after you did that, a lot of things were automated and you could sleep peacefully. Again, it comes as a personal question because I have that question for you from my own personal standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I don't think so. There's anything called peace in sales. I mean, you always preparing for the war, and I think it's good to sweat than to bleed.
Yeah,
So I think it's important that you hustle. But yeah, I think uh, to address what you mentioned. I would say one thing which I did, which really helped me sleep peacefully, or like help me be confident of what's going to happen, and probably drive predictability. I think I would
yep,
probably relate it to predictability of sales
yep,
or predictability on your quarters. I would say is make yourself redundant. I
hmm,
think that's very important. I mean, as a sales leader, if any of you are aspiring VP candidates or are VP of sales, and I think I mean, see, quota attainment is a big problem globally. I mean, to that extent that I ended up like, I mean, my startup is all about like helping more salespeople meet quota. And I found out that 57% of the salespeople globally miss their quota, and this is like 2019 data as per Forbes. So it's nothing new. I think it happens all the time. But what you can do to probably be falling in part of that 43% where you are more confident on hitting your quota is to make yourself redundant. And that would happen if you templatize your process, you create the playbook, and you enable the sales team to follow it. So that's very important, that the playbook that we spoke about earlier and you create it, how you can operationalize that playbook to that extent. It will make sure that you're running like a sales engine in a machinery rather than running a best effort sales process. There's nothing wrong with it, but it won't scale. The best effort sales process won't scale. What would scale is a predictable sales motion, which is derived from a playbook that works for you in for your organization, and you're able to operationalize it. So that I would say is very important. And if you do that, then you are making yourself redundant. You can go for a holiday, you see peacefully, but that whole sales motion would
yeah,
happen without.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. We can move to the next question now, Rahul. Awesome. So this one is around, and I'm asking this to everyone. I asked this to Ketan and to Prakhar. So one common mistake that sales leader make when they're accelerating their business beyond a point. So one thing that you think you could have avoided, and next time now that you're doing it again, uh, like one biggest mistake that you think you wouldn't do this time around, and one advice that you think is a common mistake people should avoid doing that.
I would say focus. Focus is very important. I think again, don't try to do too many things. Do a few things, but do them really well. I think that's quite important. I've seen that mistake getting repeated where like a lot of sales leaders lose focus and they end up like trying to juggle. And I think a lot of time it's not their fault as well, right? I mean, it could become an organizational need that you're donning multiple hats or you're juggling a few things around. But it's very important. I think if you are a sales leader, you're an important part of the organization. I think you should be also forcing a conversation on what creates the most impact with the least effort. I think
Yeah.
all of us, it's not just the founder's responsibility. I think all of us as as team members, a part of the leadership team should be looking at that and forcing that discussion internally on the focus. And a connected point there is like I think most of the time, especially I think we end up like forcing growth. I think you can force growth probably at an early stage, right? I mean, your product market fit, or probably the initial million ARR you can orchestrate within the close ecosystem, your friends and colleagues and extended family and their family, and there are people who can buy. I think 1 to 5 you can probably do a few things. You can do that, but you won't be able to do it beyond that, right? I mean, that's why you see a lot of companies have this value of death after 5 million ARR,
Yep. Yep.
and they become stagnant, or they run like zombies, right? So it's very important that you get this whole templatized growth really inculcated. And I think this is like the nth time I'm speaking today uh,
Yes.
on creating that playbook and template, because it's super important
Yeah.
to do that. Because once you do that, your multiplication actually happens. Otherwise, it's all mental addition or multiplication that you'll do. That okay, I have 5 salespeople today, I'll hire 25 more, and I'll be like growing 5x.
Yeah.
That never happens
It never
uh,
happens.
if you don't have that whole base and the template created, and you end up like spraying a lot and spreading thin, and then resulting into a lot of churn, or you'll end up getting the wrong customers and where there's a lot of wasted effort. It's very important that you stay focused and you don't force growth.
Hmm. Interesting. One last question, Abhijit, that I had was how can a rep transform from selling like a 10K deal to a 100K to $1 million deal? Because everyone right here, would want to turn into a key accounts rep if they're individual contributors. So rather than becoming, like how does that change happen? From a 10K to a 100K to $1 million deal, and what are the key behavioral changes or key trainings that are important to move in that trajectory?
I would say first and foremost, you need to do is you need to have the buyer empathy. You need to understand why buyer is in front of you, or why you are in front of the buyer, right? I mean, there is some pain point. There is a need that exists. Either the need exists or the need can be created. So it's very important for you to truly understand what is it that pains the person in front of me, why that pain exists in the first place. If it exists in the first place, why it is not solved,
Yep.
and if it is not solved, what it would take for you to solve. And in this whole process, when you're having that conversation, you end up becoming a trusted advisor. See, finally, like people buy from people, and trust is what you end up building as you scale. When you're growing from a 10K to a 100K to $1 million deal. I mean, the biggest deal I sold was a $2.2 million ARR deal, and that was my learning there. And that customer I chased for 18 months, but the relationship I made, the pain that I understood, and that was acknowledged by the buyer at that point of time. And we couldn't sell the first time in first year, and we ended up spending a lot of time and a lot of effort on that particular account and deal. But they did understand that I had all the right intent in mind to help them. They did acknowledge that there was a pain. It's just that they didn't have budget at that time to force through a project at that time. But the next year they created a project, and they budgeted that. And the moment they created like an RFP, they made us the first call. And I
Awesome.
got an email into my inbox that here is the RFP, would want you to come and participate. And we went into that RFP with all the big names that you can take in, from Salesforce to Oracle to SAP and all. And I mean, all these bigger names had like an existing business with that account, and we still ended up winning it. So
Yeah.
what was the biggest learning there was that one is we built the relationship, we kept in touch, we had that whole buyer empathy.
Yep.
Uh, we did understand their pain point and how to solve it. And at the same time, I ended up identifying the whole relationship map of the organization.
Yep.
Like, apart from the buyer I'm meeting, who else is a stakeholder,
Yep.
how decision is made in that organization, how budgets are created, what's the share of wallet of the existing vendors there. A lot of analysis that you start doing there. So you need to understand more and more about your buyers. So you need to do fewer things, but you need to do more detailed things when you are upscaling from a 10K to 100K to a million. And then once you know that, you can start doing multi-threading. You also then do a lot of team selling internally, right? So you'll also involve more stakeholders internally to go in with you for the deal. That increases the probability of closing the deal. So I think there are some of these things that you need to be doing. In terms of training, I think I mean, it would, there are a lot of resources available online which talks about your account management and all, but I think the essence would be this.
Yeah,
There are tools which are coming up around account-based pursuits, account-based marketing, account-based sales. I see that as an exciting area
yeah.
to focus on, and I think there's a lot of value that can be unlocked there.
Awesome. And I absolutely second your thought around, how overall relationship selling is super important when we go from 10 to 100 to 1 million. I remember this. So the largest deal that I've closed is $1 million. And I realized that the key difference is that in 10K deal, you know what the organization does or the person does at best. In the 100K deal, you know what his kids do at best. In a 1 million deal, you also know when does he plan to have the next kid. Like that's the extent to which you need to get into
Yeah.
the account. You need to have that good a rapport with the person and with the organization. You should know the pain points in and out. That's when you can start aiming for that 1 million deal. So great insights, Abhijeet. Really appreciate your time. It was fun having you on the session, and as always, it was a great learning experience for me, and I'm sure it would be a similar experience for other attendees as well.
My pleasure as well, Anupreet. And it was a great talk as well. I'm happy to like share more learning. So anybody would want to reach out to me, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn or connect with me on Twitter. I'm always there to help or just bounce any ideas. Look forward to interacting with you all.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Abhijeet.